Yeah. So what I was saying with the UV curing is the resin is cured with lasers, at least with like the Formlabs printer and some of those common ones.
Yeah.
So because it's cured with UV light, it's never fully set. It's
Okay.
if you put it out in the sun, it's going to continue to cure. And what eventually happens over time, even if it's not in the sun, but any kind of UV light that bounces into the room, it's just over time going to become more brittle. So I have some pieces in my office that I printed like 4 years ago, and they're starting to crack, and it's kind of a bummer. So it's like I don't think that we're not at a point yet where you can avoid the molding and casting process. I think that's still a really big part of if you want to make sure that it lasts forever, or you're going to sell something that people will have on their desk.
And there's no where we used to go to the art store and get like spray can fixer to spray over our charcoal drawings. Is there any plastic dip version of UV protection that we could spray on top of these guys?
Yeah, for sure. Like if you put paint on it, it'll slow the process down a bit. Okay. There's definitely ways to do it. I think it just at the end of the day, it's going to be a fragile thing. As opposed to like recasting it in like polystone or something, which is heavier and expensive. But I'm right now, personally, like when it comes to like personal art and printing things, I'm not thinking too much about all that stuff, just because like I think it'll be one of those things where like it'll slow you down. Just make it, print the thing. It's digital. If it falls apart, print it again later.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Just save the file. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's not that big of a deal, but. For sure, like reselling things, like I would, if I'm going to sell anything, or I recommend if any artist is going to sell something, you should get it molded and casted. You definitely don't want to have the class action suit where all your fans come back, 10 years later and all their stuff's broken.
Oh my god! 15 years ago, I bought Kurt's art, and now look at it, it's sand.
That's actually I'm very curious about I'm very curious about the industry and how is it going right now, because there was a good 2 or 3 years where 3D printing on the consumer level was very popular. Everybody, at least in the 3D industry, was going out to buy these 3D printing machines as soon as it was on Kickstarter, right? I felt like it's died down a bit. So has it and has it affected the technology behind it to make it more consumer friendly, because there's not much at least public interest into buying these machines? Like what's going on that side?
Like
I see the same thing.
VR.
No. Yeah, it's kind of like
exactly.
It's very similar actually,
No, I'm seeing the same thing, and like I don't know if people are just kind of being quieter about the printer or what they're doing, or if people really lost interest. But one of the things I'll say, like from experience, is it can be really tiring, and it's expensive. Even though the cost of entry is expensive with the printer itself, but then on top of that, you have upkeep. You have a liter of resin. You're looking at $150, $200 liter of resin.
How long does that last?
It's going to go bad. Mine lasted so far for like 3-4 years. If I don't open it, it's doing okay. But one that I opened 2 years ago, I'd say I probably should have stopped printing with it after about a year. Because
if you like, how many prints actually does capacity does it actually, like if you do like a figure? Yeah, can you pump out like 10 figures before you have to buy a new cartridge?
The Form 2 might be able to. Like what I was doing, like with mine, I was doing heads kind of like this, and they were like, I want to say like maybe 3-4 inches tall. Right. I went through half a liter just testing it and calibrating the printer and making sure that it works. So that was what, 60 something bucks there just to throw out. And you're kind of like, you don't think about it, you know what I mean? Like you're in the middle of it, you're like, oh, I'm getting closer. You have this project, you're having fun with it, it's cool.
Yeah.
And then you realize you need to order another thing of resin.
That's six outsourcing Chinese artists.
Exactly.
Per hour.
Exactly. So I think that Okay. Oh no, go ahead, Larry.
I would love to see a resin or a material where they're like, look, you know what? This material actually, much like, I don't know, like ice water, is like, all right, cool, here it is in its 3D, like actual solid version. Make your print. If you are done with this print, put it in this other device, which will remelt it and turn it back into the reusable spool, so that you can just like if they can find a material that will allow you to change its state back and forth. I think that would save a lot. I'll
just be melting all my wife's stuff.
Well, I mean, like even everything if it was just like this, like you just buy that one block, like it's like $200, but like you make your prints and like, all right, I'm done with this. You can put it.
That's
into
actually really smart.
The Easy Bake Oven to turn it back into spool.
Is there something like that out there right now? Yeah. We gotta put a C in a circle around that one.
Yeah, right. I can't think of anything right now, but yeah, 3M will get it down. No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I know that I mean, any resin that you don't use in the print bed, like you can just keep reusing. But I think that people felt over time like it was a bit like having a really expensive houseplant that you have to maintain. You know, once you have it, you also have to make sure that the hardware is working. You got to keep it really dust free. I mean, like you can't have fingerprints on the glass on the inside, otherwise it's going to throw the laser off. Your print's going to get screwed up. Like, it's just a touchy thing. And I don't know. For a while, I was like, whatever. Like, yeah, there's dust on the laser. I'm not going to clean that. And I didn't have problems, but I'm also, you know, I wasn't printing like super high resolution or something. So maybe I would have seen it, but. You know, it's just one of those things where, like, for me, I felt guilty not printing after a while because there was this like expensive machine that isn't getting its you know TLC, and I think that other people kind of felt that way too about their own printers. Like, man, it really, you know, expensive upkeep, expensive use, and maybe that's why it fell off a little bit. And I think that people also were kind of expecting like it's a plug. It's like an Apple device. Plug it in. USB, boom, print, there's my thing. And it's not really like that. You also have like the project after the fact, like once it's printed, of, you know, cleaning it up and making it look presentable. I think there's some artists that will say like, you know, they'll post their print, and what they aren't saying is that there was also 8 hours of sanding and, you know, a day applied to it. You know what I mean? Like depending on the printer. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to say that either. It's kind of like it's kind of gross work, but you know, that's the other part of the process that people don't necessarily. And again, it depends on like the resolution that you want, right? Like if you're printing a kitchen utensil, it's kind of not that big of a deal. You don't need to clean that up. But if you're going to print this guy, it probably. And it had more details.
I think 10 years from now, you're going to see a legit like 3D printer technology on Kickstarter, right? Yeah. It's going to fail. Yeah. But then 2 years after, it's going to be licensed by Samsung, and then Samsung's going to make the consumer version.
Well, that's the sad part, man. There was like a good period where there was a lot of public interest, and there were several 3D printing Kickstarter projects. But because it lost the public attention to it, I think the technology behind it slowed down. Yeah. And so all the things that we've talked about would have been possible if there was a continual support for it. It's sad. But I think, it'd be great if it went on and we have a bigger 3D printing machine at home and I can print like home parts and fix my house. It would have been great. But, you know, right now it's all still mostly for corporate to do those type of things. Yeah. People were like,
and I think a lot of them too, like companies.
Yeah, I mean, there were people like at one point 3D printing gun parts.
The Liberator.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah,
it was horrible, but people who it's dangerous. Yeah, but I think there was some kind of false mix of the news there. Not everybody would have that ability to print a gun. They were making like every children will have access to a 3D printing machine to print out, go on the internet, find the files, download it, and then print it. And then all the non-sexy part that you're talking about, I'm sure that dude was probably sanding the shit out every single part of his gun.
Well, I guess the hard
Right.
part for me is understanding how the firing mechanism was going to work. Like that, I'm assuming was not 3D. Like you're going to need that metal on metal contact, unless they're like, oh, just get this thumbtack from Staples.
Well,
And
I think-
you know what I mean. Like
Right.
there had to be a spring.
Right, there was something along.
yeah.
There was something. Yeah, it wasn't like a full Lego piece that you can shoot out of.
But I'll say any kid could have gotten
Yeah.
90% of the way there.
yeah, sure.
So like that was interesting.
But that was it was those type of yes, it was a gun, which is I don't think all bad, right? But it was more like they were kind of what do you call it? Demonizing it,
Yeah.
where there was a
Yeah.
lot of interest behind 3D printing again, but it took a project like that for it to catch attention to finally put some money behind the tech.
You know, the government has no problem with guns being sold because that's criminals buy guns that fuels the legal system. It's more so that like they don't know where to even begin trying to track and criminalize a 3D
Right,
printed
there's no
gun.
serial and
Oh man,
tracking
so
any of
much.
that. Yeah,
It's so harder to catch a crook when they used a piece of plastic.
sure.
Also, if somebody
Right.
pulled like a Liberator on you, you'd be like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like you would die like half laughing.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
You got one good shot in that thing.
It's true.
Anyway.
Those are the final words. Don't miss. Don't miss.
You better not miss.
I saw the whole thing. So he pulled out this plastic thing, and the guy died laughing.